Now, Nigeria's Junior D Tigers on Friday edged Uganda 71-67 to progress to the final of the FIBA Under-18 Women's Afro-Basket 2024. The Nigerians, who walked away with a win in their nail-biting semi-final fixture at Pretoria University in South Africa, secured a ticket for the FIBA Under-19 Women's Basketball World Cup in 2025 in Czechia, alongside Mali, who steamrolled Cameroon 103-45 in their other semi-final clash at the same venue earlier in the day. Uganda had their work cut out for them facing Nigeria, despite having only won their side's fixture in the group phase, with today's victory coming as sweet revenge. The 2010 silver medalist Nigeria won one game in the group phase, 107-30 outcome against Zimbabwe, but got a second chance at fighting for the title after making the last 8 as one of the 2 best placed teams in the tournament. Now let's turn our attention to a basketball stakeholder who is very enshrined in basketball, and we'll be talking about the evolution of basketball and the loopholes we've seen in the games, and also casting our mind back to a memorable 2024 Paris Games where the D Tigers literally took the world by storm. I want to say thank you very much, Igoche, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now let's get it started. Our junior D Tigers and junior D Tigers might have crashed out in South Africa, but our junior D Tigers are doing so well at the moment. And I beg to ask, with what is responsible for our teams doing very well on the continent, but cannot make it on the global stage?
Thank you very much for having me on this program. It's obvious that we might be lacking so many things, but talent is not one of them. We have a talent, and what is really pushing us and taking us far is the raw talents that we have. Now, the Tigers, the junior Tigers, as you just mentioned, they are making us proud. They are now qualified for the finals. We are happy about it. They played Egypt, and the group stage they lost to Egypt, but when they came to quarterfinals, they took out their own revenge and they beat Egypt. And the game yesterday in the semifinals, with the won, and now they're in finals. They are making us very proud. But if you go beyond that, we're still facing or having some issues or problems that need to be tackled back at home here, because for us they are doing us very well. They're making us proud. Nigeria currently rated number 12 in FIBA World Ranking in basketball, but we don't have a playable facility back at home here. So we need to, as a matter of urgency, begin to invest more in basketball, especially in terms of infrastructure and facilities. It is very, very important. And we also have to look at this athletes' welfare as well, and support system, because it also goes a long way to motivate them to perform and give us their best.
All right, Igoche, let's turn our attention to the Olympics. Of course, we saw a picture of our D Tigers doing great things, achieving great feats at the Olympics. But before we come to the game of basketball at the Olympics, let's talk about the general outlook of the Olympics from the perspective of Team Nigeria. How would you rate their performance at the Olympics?
Obviously, it's not a secret anymore that we did poorly in the just concluded Olympics without winning any medal. That is not good for Nigeria, the giant of Africa. We used to be number 1 in sports in Africa. And basically, the reason for that is there are a few reasons that have put us where we are today. Lack of proper preparation and training. As I mentioned too, with basketball, lack of proper facilities and infrastructure, lack of funding as well and resources, and also poor management of leadership in the sports sector. These are the things that are responsible or that led to our outcome in the just concluded Olympics in Paris.
All right, so
it's very, very important that we need to work on this. It's important that we work on this if we want to do better in the next Olympics. Olympics comes once in every 4 years. I can tell you that people who are preparing for the next Olympics, by now, they're already working towards it. We shouldn't be waiting for a last-minute arrangement or a bridge arrangement. We'll wait a few months before the time and then we start rushing to meet up. It's not rocket science. We can't make it that way. If we are serious and we want to go for it, we should start preparing from now. People who are aiming to win medals in the next Olympics, as I'm talking to you, they are already preparing. So our preparation and training, it is key to our performance in the next Olympics. And how can we achieve that? We need a proper infrastructure and facilities where these athletes, where they can go and train and compete with their fellow athletes. It is very, very important. And we also need funding. We need funding. Currently, it is not the statutory budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Sports cannot really support all the sports federation in Nigeria. We also, as a matter of urgency, begin to look at sustainable alternative source of funding for our sports development in Nigeria. That is the only way we can survive or we can make progress. Because funding is a major part or a major challenge in Nigerian sports.
All right, Igoche, I would like to ask you, since you mentioned funding, let me digress a little bit and hear from you, because there are few people that have really invested into sports, and not just invested into sports, played the long game for years and years, almost getting to a decade and even more, that have really invested into sports. The late Mr. Abodere has done that. Of course, we cannot take away the likes of Colonel Sam Amedu and what he has done with Dodon Warriors over the years. Another name that will easily spring to mind will be Igoche Mark, with what he started doing with Mark the Ball, then with Mark Mentors. As a private citizen who has decided to put his money where his mouth is, how difficult is it to put your money into sports and sustain it over the years without seeing anything come out of it? How difficult has that been over the years?
It's been very difficult, and as a matter of fact, you can only do that if you love the game. And that's the reason why only a few people have been able to do that and sustain it over the years.
Okay. Since you said this, so let's talk about sports development for a little bit. Talk to us, how can Nigeria's sports development improve? I know you've mentioned the area of funding, but how can we improve sports development in Nigeria that we begin to measure up with some of the superpowers in sports like China, the US, Great Britain, and maybe some European countries? How can we do all this? Talk to us. I would like to hear from you.
All right. So first and foremost, we have to start by investing in our facilities and infrastructure. The existing facilities, we have to invest in modernizing them to meet up to the modern standard. I can give you, for example, the National Stadium here was built in 2002, and the tracks there have been there since that time. Meanwhile, the lifespan of a field track is supposed to be 10 years. That one has been there for about 22 years. It needs to be changed. We need to invest in trying to modernize our current facilities and infrastructures, and we also have to invest in building new ones. At the moment in Nigeria, we don't have any high-performance center. We can't go far in sports without a high-performance center. That is what now is obtainable all over the world. In the countries I just mentioned, they have high-performance centers where the athletes can go and train. And there they have access to everything. The athlete who is going to go and train, after training, he will see a physiotherapist, he will see a doctor, he will see an athletic trainer, he will see a nutritionist and everything. So we need to start looking at all that. Sports infrastructure is key to our sports development. That's one. Number two, we also have to start looking at grassroots sport development. We have the talent there, no doubt, but how do we harness this talent? How do we see the best of the best that we have? How do we get them to represent us at the international events and make us proud?
All right, sir. I would like to hear from you, sir. What's the role, or rather, what role should the government play in supporting sports development in Nigeria? Because the biggest business, as they say, and the biggest sector in Nigeria still remains the public sector and government. What are they doing enough, and what should they do to ensure that we can put sports in the right frame moving forward?
Okay, so first of all, government needs to invest or put in more money into sports. And that includes the infrastructure and the facilities, as I said, modernizing the existing facilities that we have and bringing it up to standard to the modern time, and even building new infrastructures and facilities. That would be one. Number two, government can also put in place policies, to help sports development. Government should also make sports is a big business. So government should create, because what we need right now, government alone cannot shoulder the whole funding or sports investment that we need in the country at the moment. So we need to engage the private sector. So government needs to encourage private partnership with sports. And in doing that, government needs to create like an incentive for sports investment, to companies, private sectors that want to come in to sponsor sports or to partner in sports development in Nigeria. They need to have a kind of incentives that will make it attractive to them to come in. Of course, anybody running his or her own business, they want to do it for profit or something. So seeing that sports is a huge business and then they can benefit from it, I'm sure by doing that, we can bring in a lot of private sector partnership with sports, because we need that to be able to take sports from where we are now to where we want to get to. And also too, government can also help to put together, to encourage proper leadership and management in the sports sector, because that's also key. Having done everything, putting all the funds and everything without proper leadership and management within the sports sector, we still will not be able to achieve the result that we want to achieve. So with all this put in place, if we have a good facility and good infrastructure and putting in place funding for the athletes and for the sports program and encouraging the private partnership, as I mentioned earlier, putting all that in place, government will go a long way in fulfilling their own part in trying to revamp or rebuild sports in Nigeria.
All right, sir, I would like to hear from you. With what has happened at the Paris 2024 Games, shortly we'll be hosting or we'll be conducting the elections once again into several federations. What do you expect from the ministry? And what do you think can be done from the government to ensure that we have round pegs in round holes, so that disasters that was witnessed in London 2012, another disaster that was witnessed in Paris 2024 can be averted?
Okay. Now, the government needs to encourage or make sure that we have the right people to head the right federations. As we all are aware, almost all the federations almost all the sports federations in Nigeria, they have one issue or the other. And I think the Ministry of Sports have to intervene in trying to resolve all those issues and trying to bring all the sports federations together. For example, I can speak about a few of the federations, especially like in basketball. We all know about the crisis that has been in basketball for a very long time now and is still unresolved. The Minister of Sports, he needs to step in and resolve whatever crisis is there, and that applies to so many other federations. Resolve this crisis and then put together the right leadership with a mandate to take our sports from where we are now to where we want to get to. It shouldn't just be all about just coming and then without anything to offer. It should be all about putting the right people with the right mindset, with the right ability, and with the foresight to move our sports from where we are to where we want to get to.
Finally, you mentioned this briefly, but I would still like to chime into this. Sports facilities in Nigeria are either moribund or non-existent. It's unfortunate that's where we find ourselves. What can be done in the interim to close this gap so that athletes can begin to train? Because if we're talking about preparing for the Olympics, if we do not have either a makeshift facility or a ready-made facility on ground, how can these athletes train if they have to pay from their pockets to go to training clubs to get themselves fit and ready for the Olympics? What can be done in the interim and in the long term?
Okay, so as a matter of urgency, because we have these facilities, but then as you rightly said, they are either run down or not operational at all. So as a matter of urgency, the government needs to step in to modernize the existing facilities, because that will be easier than building a new one. If you want to start building new facilities or infrastructures now, it's going to take a longer time. But I believe that modernizing or revamping the existing ones won't take as long. That's the first step I think the government should take in trying to solve this whole problem in sports, because we need without the facilities, the athletes can't train, and that's what's been happening. The athletes have been figuring out how to train on their own and then preparing on their own and then go and represent Nigeria. So basically, it's all been about personal efforts, But the government now coming in with the approach that they are bringing now to revamp all their facilities and put them in order, it will go a long way to help the athletes to start preparing for the next competition or tournament.
All right, sir. We want to say thank you very much for your time. Speak to us here on the Rise News.